that hot mess that they air in the mornings called The View had to issue not one, not two, not three, but 4 corrections, legal corrections. Not to mention what they did at that debate, where once again, they tried to fact check only one side. And then when their fact checks got fact checked, they cowered. They cowered in fear. I mean, this is a pattern with them.
But look, what did it take for us to get to the point of an apology? We had to threaten a lawsuit, Jesse. And by the way, we're still entertaining it. We're talking to some of the best lawyers out there that are experts in this. And as you know, these things can be very complicated. There's a lot of facts and circumstances around it. But we're not going to let this go, because you should not be able to smear 5,000 high school and college kids and then just be able to walk away with it. And
Whoopi Goldberg just hit.
We just witnessed a full-blown DEFCON 1 on live TV. And no, it wasn't because of a wardrobe malfunction. After Charlie Kirk and Megyn Kelly delivered a verbal smackdown so savage it would make a heavyweight champ tap out, Whoopi Goldberg went from her usual cool demeanor to full-on someone hide the breakables mode. What exactly did they drop that short-circuited her signature sass? Get ready, because this epic unraveling is hotter than a group chat during a celebrity scandal. Let's peel back the layers of a TV moment nobody saw coming.
Charlie Kirk's the founder and CEO of Turning Point USA and the author of the new book, The College Scam. So, Charlie, do you accept The View's apology?
I mean, regardless of whether or not I accept it, the question is, do our students accept it? That's really what's at heart here. They went after our 5,000 students at our event there of high school and college kids. And look, I get attacked all the time. People say false things. I'm a public figure. But when you go after 16 and 17-year-olds that travel from across the country that then have to live for the rest of their life with a shadow over them.
So there she was, America's self-appointed queen of wisdom and unbothered righteousness, looking like she just stumbled upon her own brutal Yelp reviews. Whoopi, the empress of eye rolls and the undisputed champion of daytime drama, was having a legitimate breakdown, not the poetic, nuanced kind. This was more like watching a soap opera villain finally realize their own stylist has been secretly working for the good guys. And the masterminds behind this daytime demolition, none other than Charlie Kirk and Megyn Kelly, the unlikely duo that turned out to be the ultimate dream team of public takedowns.
They're disgusting. She's Anna Navarro in your wildest imagination. You could never solo host a show. You will only ever make it as part of an ensemble, and you could never hope to achieve the success that Tucker Carlson has. So you can sit in your little cheap seats all day long and enjoy your little negative henpecking, but your careers are going nowhere, and Tucker is about to dominate in whatever space he goes to.
But hold on a second. Let's rewind and piece together how this train wreck began. Because this meltdown didn't just materialize out of thin air. Whoopi, comfortably perched on her squeaky leather throne at The View, had been on an unstoppable rampage of verbal gymnastics gone spectacularly wrong. Imagine trying to juggle flaming torches while blindfolded, simultaneously delivering a TED Talk on quantum physics, all before your first cup of coffee.
The reason they felt they needed to do that, Jesse, is because if they told their audience the truth, that when gas is the most expensive it's been, flights are super expensive, that 5,000 kids decided to spend a weekend in summer traveling across the country to go hear from conservative speakers, maybe the audience of The View would think twice about all of their ideas. That's why they felt so compelled to try to smear our wonderful summit this last.
Yeah, that's pretty much the vibe. Every single episode became an unpredictable game of hot take roulette, featuring impromptu rants and opinion grenades that detonated faster than her producers could even think about hitting the commercial break button. Honestly, at this point, The View has completely abandoned any pretense of being a daytime panel. It's now just a fever dream stuck somewhere between a college debate club and an unmoderated Facebook comment section.
Welcome back. You know, in Monday's conversation about Turning Point USA, I put the young people at the conference in the same category as the protesters outside. And I don't like it when people make assumptions about me. And it's not any better when I make assumptions about other people, which I did. So, my bad. I'm sorry.
The show's original mission to spark intelligent conversation has completely morphed into a bizarre competitive sport where nuance is treated like a severe allergic reaction. And Whoopi, She's the undisputed coach, the color commentator, and occasionally the referee blowing the whistle on her own arguments. She serves up steaming portions of absolute certainty with the unwavering conviction of someone who once skimmed half an article and then built their entire worldview around it. This isn't just chaos. It's meticulously curated chaos, broadcast 5 days a week for our collective astonishment. Naturally, it didn't take long for her to land squarely on the radar of America's professional outrage connoisseurs. Right on cue, Charlie Kirk emerged from the digital mist, conservative crusader, daytime provocateur, and a lifelong skeptic of anything remotely marinated in coastal elitism. With the laser precision of a hawk, he zeroed in on Whoopi's latest televised brainwave and transformed it into a multi-platform masterclass in modern absurdity. He didn't wait for permission, he didn't ask for a dialogue. He simply detonated the moment. But Kirk wasn't content with just tossing garden variety criticism into the void. Oh no. He weaponized his rebuttal, turning it into a theatrical production of ideological demolition, dissecting Whoopi's on-screen antics with such finesse that even the dust molecules looked offended.
I mean, there was what do you call it, this Turning Point conference with all the smoke? What are they, smoking something down there? Or it's like, whatever. Anyway, they were out there, were in the front of out there in front of the conference with anti-Semitic slurs.
Whoa, the drama. Charlie Kirk's organization, Turning Point USA, threatened to sue The View. And let me tell you, the nonsense that ensued is really something.
In Kirk's narrative, this wasn't just another celebrity spewing nonsense. It was a high-definition expose of what happens when glamorous entertainers try to moonlight as geopolitical strategists. He painted a picture not just of Whoopi, but of the entire panel at The View as the absolute pinnacle of entertainment world delusion. They weren't just mildly confused or occasionally misinformed, they were galactic, floating far beyond Earth's orbit, sipping space lattes in a zero-gravity salon of self-importance. In his eyes, the show no longer reflected everyday people. It was a feedback loop of elitist noise wrapped in designer scarves and empty daytime platitudes. And once that narrative was locked in, Kirk went full throttle. He leaned in, launched content across every conceivable medium, and let the algorithm gods do their work. Whoopi wasn't trending by accident. She had been meticulously, brutally served. But the demolition wasn't quite complete. That's when Megyn Kelly entered the arena. Less a commentator, more a meticulous auditor armed with a magnifying glass, killer heels, and a PhD in media dissection. If Charlie Kirk was the blunt force trauma, Megyn was the slow, silent paper cut that keeps stinging for days. She didn't just challenge Whoopi's narrative, she unpacked it, sorted it alphabetically, and held it up for the entire world to see under brutal fluorescent lighting. The glamour faded fast.
They asked him about that. They asked him about that moment. Watch this, SOT 36.
When the vice president was here, I asked her if she would have done something differently than your administration over the past 4 years. And because of all the successes that your administration had, I think her response was, there is not a thing that comes to mind. Now, that answer was weaponized against her.
Kelly approached the entire situation like a forensic detective at a crime scene, meticulously identifying not just the individual missteps, but the undeniable pattern of public misfires that had turned a celebrated icon into a weekly trending topic for all the wrong reasons. There was no raised voice, no performative outrage, just a chillingly calm breakdown that was somehow more unsettling than any loud confrontation. Think operating room, not courtroom. It was methodical, surgically precise. Where Kirk bulldozed with raw political fervor, Megyn approached with an eerie calm that felt almost colder, because it wasn't about rage. It was about reputation management, and Whoopi's was looking more threadbare by the minute. Kelly methodically lined up the timeline of blunders like pins on a board, subtly suggesting that this wasn't just a one-off situation, but a slow-motion career detour into complete irrelevance. And while she never yelled or hurled accusations, her tone implied a far more devastating truth. Maybe the showbiz powerhouse wasn't just having a bad week. Maybe she'd been skating on past glory for far too long. And in an era where viral relevance instantly replaces legacy like yesterday's trending hashtag, that implication hit harder than any loud rant ever could. By the time she was done, Whoopi's media mythos looked less like an impenetrable fortress and more like a fixer-upper that even HGTV wouldn't touch without a full waiver. And Meghan? She simply walked away. Heels clicking, case closed.
Do you think if a liberal came to speak at University of Kentucky, they'd give an open mic like I just did to a conservative and had a discussion like this?
I certainly hope they would.
No, they wouldn't. Because speech is not a left-wing value. That is why they have to deploy shock troops called Antifa to go after everywhere I go. When I go to University of California, Davis next week, there has to be 120 police officers because of the threats, the violent threats of liberals that want me dead, that want to disrupt our events. There are no right-wing hecklers that come to events like this. I think it's rather clear there's one side that is trying to do everything they can to shut one side up and one side that's trying to open up the marketplace of ideas. And I think that's rather self-evident.
And the glorious result? A spectacular media pileup so gloriously messy, even cable news couldn't tear their eyes away. A beautiful, flaming collision of egos, sharp critique, and cultural backlash that Whoopi absolutely did not have on her bingo card. The internet, with its usual delicate subtlety, responded with all the restraint of a toddler unleashed in a candy store. Viral clips exploded across timelines. Meme makers worked overtime, cooking up remixes with the precision of a master DJ at a rave. Reaction videos didn't just trickle in, they launched a full-blown flash flood. TikTok edits hit with emotional piano music, slow-motion zoom-ins, and the occasional laser eyes effect, because nothing screams cultural collapse like cinematic dramatics in 4K. But to truly grasp the full impact of this digital dumpster fire, you absolutely need to understand the strange, alternate reality that is The View. This isn't just a daytime show, it's a full-fledged ritual. Part soap opera, part chaotic group therapy, with the volume cranked to 11 and nuance duct taped to a chair. It's a place where topics aren't just discussed, they're incinerated in the flaming wreckage of performative outrage, and standing majestically atop this chaos, like a televangelist on a caffeine bender, is Whoopi, the thunderous anchor who's built an entire career out of treating every single opinion as if it were a personal revelation beamed down from the gods of daytime righteousness.
Her disgusting, gross elitism and her complete out-of-touch nature with respect to the rest of the world. Sunny Hostin goes on The View and decides now would be a great time to dump all over the so-called uneducated.
What we did not have is white women who voted about 52%, right, for Donald Trump. Uneducated white women, is my understanding. You have Latino men, actually, voting more for him. And you have, and black men was not the story. We're not the story here because they voted almost 80% for the vice president.
Right.
Just because you didn't go to college doesn't mean you're stupid, and it doesn't mean that you don't have wisdom. You can go to college and get a bunch of irrelevant facts about how men can allegedly give birth or whatever they teach.
But here's the unexpected twist. Even the high priestess herself can stumble on the temple steps. After years of dominating the screen with her trademark blend of dismissiveness and righteous indignation, the tide finally shifted. What once felt like powerful command now teetered precariously into pure caricature. And when the backlash finally came, it didn't just knock, it kicked down the door wearing steel-toed boots. Because no matter how seasoned the sermonizer, there inevitably comes a moment when the congregation starts subtly side-eyeing the message, and maybe, just maybe, decides to change the channel. This wasn't about one specific moment either. Oh no. Charlie and Meghan weren't critiquing a single slip-up. They were dragging her entire catalog. From years of sanctimonious monologues to the bizarrely intense rants that made it feel like she was auditioning for an off-Broadway production of I Know Better Than You, the musical. Nothing was safe, and that's precisely what made this takedown so devastatingly complete. It wasn't a critique, it was a full-blown rebranding. Whoopi went from being celebrated as the fearless truth-teller of daytime TV to becoming the aunt who talks way too much at Thanksgiving and still manages to get all the details wrong. That's a mighty long fall from national treasure, and the internet had front-row seats to the entire spectacle.
I don't want to say too much, but we're going to have a lot of fun at the Department of Education. We're going to have a lot of fun.
Can I tell you something? Like, I've had quite a few people contact me about that particular post. Like, I'm sure I have 1/100th of what you're getting, but people are contacting me about cabinet posts. I'm like, I got
look,
nothing.
I mean, I'm actually, after this conversation, heading to Mar-a-Lago for a week. and we have a lot to sift through. And if I could be helpful, I have asked. I want to be actively involved in all things education, as you can imagine.
And it certainly didn't help that The View has slowly but surely transformed into the soundstage equivalent of a group project where every single person genuinely believes they're the smartest one in the room. The predictable result? A whole lot of shouting, very little actual listening, and a host lineup that treats facts like decorative napkins. Nice to have, but entirely optional. And when your show becomes the go-to source for people who desperately want to feel informed without actually being informed, eventually, someone's going to call you out. This time, those someones had millions of followers, multiple media platforms, and zero interest in letting Whoopi coast on her ego-fueled status. What happened next was, frankly, a work of art. Whoopi didn't clap back. She didn't throw shade. She simply showed up looking like someone had finally, definitively told her that being loud doesn't automatically make you right. The fire was gone. The sass had completely flatlined. It was as if all the snark had been surgically removed, leaving behind a hollow husk of daytime indignation and a string of profoundly uncomfortable silences. Even diehard viewers noticed the shift. Gone were the days of smug chuckles and triumphant eyebrow lifts. Now it was long pauses, forced jokes, and the unmistakable vibe of someone who just frantically Googled how to survive a public shaming.
Whoopi Goldberg was angry when Alyssa pointed out that Trump went to the funeral of Officer Diller.
Yes.
On Long Island, and Joe Biden went to a podcast. Look at Whoopi Goldberg's reaction.
Choose what you like there, but for Republicans, it was good imagery.
Really?
One day later, yes.
And I'm asking that because I was so offended, because you know who showed up.
Yeah.
And he was, whether he was asked or not. This is a man who didn't care what happened to the officers on January 6th.
She promotes Joe Biden and Kamala Harris every day on that show. Trump wasn't supportive enough of the cops who were, yes, in danger on J 6th. How does that explain their behavior on a daily basis toward Harris, toward Biden, toward AOC, toward all of the left, including their own show, Sunny Hostin? The hypocrisy is rank.
It's crucial to remember that no one enjoys a fall from grace more than the public, especially when the person taking the tumble once acted like they were completely gravity-proof. And Whoopi, bless her baffling convictions, had spent years treating The View like her own personal TED Talk, conveniently forgetting the research part. Megyn Kelly's take hit especially hard because it masterfully reframed Whoopi not as a villain, but as something far, far worse: irrelevant. In the cruel, unforgiving kingdom of media, irrelevance is the digital guillotine. And when Megyn neatly laid out her case, complete with exhibit after exhibit from the show's greatest fails, the gavel came down with an undeniable thud. There was no shouting match, no dramatic walk-off, just a slow, collective realization that the Emperor might not only be stark naked, but also slightly confused about what day it is. It's not that Whoopi can't bounce back. She's done it before. But this time, the criticism dug a little deeper. Not because it was meaner, but because it was accurate. She wasn't being dragged for a single bad take. She was being held accountable for a years-long pattern of smug detachment and inaccurate wisdom, awkwardly wrapped in charisma. And that's the bottom line. Charlie Kirk may be loud, but this time, he wasn't wrong. Megyn Kelly may be polished, but this time, she wasn't off the mark. Together, they pulled off the rarest of defeats, getting people across the entire political spectrum to agree that maybe, just maybe, Whoopi's crown had truly slipped. Not because she got older or louder, but because she simply got lazier. The hot takes became lukewarm, the outrage performative, and the facts optional. Meanwhile, The View soldiers on, seemingly blissfully unaware that it's slowly becoming the televised equivalent of a group chat no one has the courage to actually leave. Whoopi still shows up, still dishes out the same tired tone, but now with a faint, almost visible aura of someone who knows the room isn't laughing with her anymore. The media world loves a good comeback story, but it absolutely adores a good collapse. And right now, Whoopi's playing both roles at once, icon and punchline. The only real question is, does she even realize the audience has changed? One thing's for sure, if this epic breakdown taught us anything, it's that even daytime divas aren't safe from the digital guillotine, and when the wrecking balls come from both ends of the ideological spectrum, maybe it's time to trade the soapbox for a mirror. The View may continue, the chairs may spin, the segments may roll on, but the Goldberg mystique? That's a wrap. And not the Oscar-winning kind, just the kind you use to pack up leftovers when the dinner party's officially over and all the guests have moved on to something better. And thus concludes the story of how one of daytime TV's loudest voices found herself silenced, not by censorship, not by scandal, but by the inconvenient truth that sometimes the mic drop comes from people who weren't even in the same room.